My son noticed the bread basket before I did. That's the part one keep thinking about. Not the steaks, not my sister's comment, not even what happened afterward. Just Caleb quietly pulling the bread plate closer to himself like he already understood something I was still trying not to see. He was 8, old enough to notice embarrassment, young enough to pretend he didn't. The dinner happened at a restaurant my sister Melanie liked because the lighting was low and the prices were high enough to become part of the conversation. Her husband Greg had recently started doing well again after a rough stretch in commercial real estate, and suddenly every family event involved imported wine and words like reservation policy. I arrived late from work with Caleb still wearing his baseball hoodie under a clean jacket. Melanie hugged me distractedly. "You made it," she said, already turning away. The table was crowded. My parents, Melanie's family, 2 cousins, a couple I didn't know well. Everyone already had drinks. Menace disappeared almost immediately because Melanie had pre-planned most of the meal with the waiter. Steaks, seafood platters, desserts for the table later. Caleb sat quietly beside me coloring on the paper kids menu. The waiter came around confirming temperatures for everyone's steaks when Melanie suddenly looked toward Caleb like she just remembered him. "Oh," she said lightly. "We didn't order for him." I waited for the follow-up. It never came. She smiled toward Caleb. "Kids usually just eat bread and fries anyway, right?" Before I could answer, my father chuckled from across the table. "You should have packed him something. You know how these places are." A few people looked uncomfortable. Nobody corrected them. Caleb gave a tiny shrug like he was trying to help me feel less awkward. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not super hungry." Then he reached for the bread basket. Something inside me shifted when I saw that. Not rage, recognition. Because this wasn't really about dinner. It was about watching my son learn in real time how much disrespect people expected us to absorb politely. For years I'd ignored smaller things from Melanie. The jokes about my apartment after the divorce, the comments about my old truck, the way she introduced me as still figuring things out even though I worked 50 hours a week and never asked anyone for help. I told myself it kept the peace. But Caleb was watching now. And children build their understanding of worth from moments adults think are forgettable. The waiter returned carrying another bottle of wine. That's when I stood up. Not dramatically, just enough to stop the table conversation. "Actually," I said calmly, "can we separate Caleb's and my check from the rest of the table?" The waiter nodded automatically. Then I added, "And I'll also need to cancel my portion of the summer house payment before the deadline tomorrow." The silence afterward felt immediate and physical. Melanie blinked. "What?" I looked at the waiter apologetically first. "Sorry, timing's awkward." Then back to my sister. "The lake house deposit. I covered the first payment last month, remember?" Most of the table clearly did not remember. Because they never knew. Melanie's expression changed carefully. "Evan, don't do this here." But the thing was, I wasn't doing anything. I was just no longer protecting everyone from information. Greg leaned forward. "Wait, you paid the deposit?" "Part of it," I said. My father frowned. "I thought Greg handled that." Greg looked suddenly interested in his water glass. Months earlier Melanie had called me privately saying cash flow was temporarily tight because of delayed commissions. She promised repayment before summer. I hadn't minded helping at the time. Families help each other. But sitting there watching my son eat dry bread while everyone else cut into $100 steaks changed the shape of that generosity permanently. Melanie lowered her voice. "You're embarrassing me." I almost laughed at that. Instead I looked at Caleb. "You want burgers somewhere else?" He nodded immediately. Too quickly. Like he'd already been hoping we could leave. That hurt more than anything said at the table. Outside the night air felt cool and strangely quiet after the restaurant noise. Caleb climbed into the truck carefully. After a minute he asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. "No," I said. "Then why didn't they get me food?" Children ask questions adults spend years avoiding. I took a long breath before answering. Sometimes people get too comfortable deciding who matters less. He stared out the window after that. A week later, the family vacation quietly fell apart. Too expensive suddenly. Too complicated. My father called twice trying to smooth things over without directly discussing the dinner itself. Melanie texted long explanations about stress, miscommunication, and me taking things personally. None of it addressed Caleb. That told me enough. A month later, I asked Caleb if he wanted to attend another family dinner for my cousin's birthday. He hesitated. Can we just do something ourselves instead? There wasn't anger in his voice. Just caution. So that Saturday after his baseball game, I took him to a small diner near the highway with sticky menus and cracked leather booths. Nothing fancy. The waitress called everybody on. Caleb ordered a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake without first checking the prices. Halfway through the meal, he started talking normally again about baseball cards, school, some joke his friend made. I sat there listening to him and realized something uncomfortable. Peace isn't always keeping a table together. Sometimes it's finally leaving one.